Thank you for joining me this morning. It's a very challenging time and a lot of concerns. I'm looking forward to some questions about Medicare and the changes that have been proposed to the program in the name of deficit reduction. Like many of you, I have some serious concerns about our nation's budget deficit and want to leave a better fiscal future for my grandchildren and our great-grandchildren. While I support cutting spending, I believe that any reductions have to be balanced across many programs, many departments, and many government services. The House Republicans' plan to do away with Medicare as we know it is the wrong solution for our budget problems. Last week, the majority released a budget that puts nearly the entire burden of reducing the deficit on senior citizens and working families. A large portion of their plan deals with ending the guaranteed coverage seniors pay for under Medicare in favor of a private insurance system that reduces benefits and nearly doubles the cost to seniors. I put this in the simplest terms. Under their budget plan, Medicare would be a voucher system where the government would pay private insurance companies directly for a portion of your coverage. It appears that portion would leave seniors paying double what they pay now. Plus, the quality of coverage would be up to the private insurance company, and it could cost a whole lot more if you have a pre-existing condition and are suddenly bargaining on your own for a coverage plan. So what can we do about it? As your congressman, I am fighting to keep the guaranteed benefits for Iowa seniors under Medicare as a price that people can afford. In addition to cutting waste and targeting fraud in Medicare during the last Congress, my colleagues and I have offered alternative spending cuts to ending Medicare in our budget plan. For instance, our government pays $4 billion a year to major oil and gas companies, subsidizing an industry that is profitable doesn't need taxpayer help. Our government pays over $1 billion a year in mortgage tax breaks for vacation homes and yachts, and top of other giveaways for luxury items that most of us can't afford. In other words, I have urged that there are better places to cut the health benefits for our seniors, better places than to cut health benefits for our seniors. I would like now to take your questions about Medicare and the proposed changes, and thank you very much for tuning in today.
Thank you, Congressman Boswell, for those remarks. For those who have joined us, I want to remind you again to press star 3. And that's from there you'll be connected to screeners who will be able to connect you to the Congressman Boswell. Congressman, we have a question that's come in already from Floyd Loggins about Social Security. So Floyd, you're on with the Congressman. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Go ahead. Good to have you online. Please tell me your question about Social Security. Hello?
Hello?
Floyd?
This Congressman Boswell?
Yeah, speaking.
Yeah. Congressman, I don't understand why people like me paid Social Security for 50 years while they was working. Now we retired. You're going to take our Social Security and cutting it down, and you go just like I have to take this amber set for my memory, keep from trying to go be Alzheimer's, and running the donut hole because we ain't got enough money, and I don't have enough money now to pay for my medicine.
Well, let me respond to some. Let me respond a little bit to that. First off, I want you to know that I will fight to maintain Social Security, and I don't think it's going to be taken away after hearing the President speak yesterday and my own strong feelings. As you probably know, Floyd, the opposition wanted to privatize Social Security before, and we said, no, we're not going to do that. And thank heavens we didn't as we went into this recession. But anyway, what will probably happen is that the age for people going on Social will increase, but that will not affect you. So I think that I can tell you that I don't believe you have to worry about that, I do want you to remember that I voted to give you that $250 check off cost of living increase that made up the fact that you didn't get the cost of living allowance, so that helped a little bit. And also, I think that you probably have realized you've gotten some 250 back based on the donut hole. So, that would be helpful too. But your point's well taken. I hear it a lot. Don't mess with Social Security, and we don't intend to do that. And thank you very much for your call. Tom?
Okay, thank you again. Congressman, the next caller is John Erickson. John, you have a question about the President's plan on Medicare? So please go ahead.
John, go ahead and share your question about the President's plan on Medicare.
Well, Congressman Boswell, what I stated was that I want to make sure that I'm understood. I just want to be in line with President Obama. I don't believe he's going to tear this plan up like some people on the other side of the aisle want to do. And I'm happy with Medicare the way it's been handled, and I just can't see letting any politician tear it up and deface it. So I just want to stay with the President's plan, and hopefully that'll be law soon.
Well, it is law right now, John, and I want you to know that. And the President wants to let the Affordable Care Act that we worked so hard on last session to work and give it a chance to do the things it is proposed to do, and I feel extremely strongly the same way. It extended the solvency, if you remember, of Medicare by 12 years, takes it out to 2029 by cutting out waste and fraud and abuse. Didn't cut out services. And last year alone, we stopped $450 million in improper Medicare payments, and that extended it out to give us some breathing room and some security with that. So that's good. And we also worked very hard, John, with others here from Iowa to make sure that the doctors in our state who provide Medicare patients with care are reimbursed at a fair rate compared to the rest of the country. As you may not be aware, maybe you are aware, Iowa was on the short end of the stick. For example, if you lived in Louisiana, and who would think that the care was any better down there, they got paid almost double as much as would get in Iowa. So we think we got that fixed, and that's going to be taken care of. And we've worked pretty hard to get transparency and oversight to the private health insurance industry by giving states the resources to crack down on excessive and unreasonable premium increases. We worked pretty hard to close the Medicare Part D donut hole. Seniors who have been affected in the last year have received the $250 I earlier mentioned to help cover their prescription drug costs, and the Affordable Care Act will continue to discount drugs for seniors affected by the donut hole until it's closed by 2020, and so that progress has taken place. I might add this, just because of your interest, the Affordable Care Act provides free preventive services, like including services for annual checkup, colonoscopy, and mammogram. These are very important preventive measures. And the Medicare cost savings and healthcare reform affected insurance companies and healthcare providers, not seniors. And so we worked hard on that. I appreciate your concern, and I think that we're on the same path, and we will do our best to stay right with you. Thank you so much for your concern and your sharing your question. We'll move on to the next question, Tom.
Okay, Congressman, the next question comes from Cecil Bruton from Des Moines. Cecil has a question also about Medicare and priorities with spending. Cecil, go ahead.
Cecil, go ahead.
Congressman Boswell, I wonder why every time the government wants to cut spending, they choose Social Security or Medicare. I'm 85 years old. I've been paying into this forever. And to me, that's my money. How does the government find it necessary to mess with that?
Well, John, you're talking to the right guy. I feel the same as you do, and I will not support that. I've been very clear about that for a long time. So you and I are fighting for the same reasons, the same cause. You have paid into Social Security. It's been an extremely successful program. It has very low overhead costs, and it's been a good program. The Medicare program has been equally as well. It's been extremely good, and last year we were able to find some savings and make it viable for another 10, 12 years and give us some time to make other adjustments to keep it whole. And it's our intention, it's my intention to work on that as hard as I can, and I appreciate your concerns. I hear that a lot, but I am in tune with you, and I will stay that way on this particular issue. There's other places, John, or Cecil, we can get this savings. We can get this savings, but, you know, the subsidies going out, as I mentioned earlier, to the oil companies. Now, who thinks they need subsidies now at the price of gas? They're having record profits. And there's other things, you know, people that's got second luxury homes or yachts or so on are getting breaks, and then there's millions and millions of dollars there. And those savings there could offset a lot of these things and also reduce our deficit. Another thing would reduce our deficit, we've got these halfway around the world wars going on, you know, Iraq and Afghanistan, and I'm very strong. It's time to bring our troops home. You know, it's time to bring them home, and that would be a tremendous savings, and we need to do that. And I can tell you that the Secretary Gates from the Department of Defense, our Defense Secretary, is saying a lot of savings could be taking place there in the Department of Defense, and so that's where we ought to be going instead of talking about Social Security and Medicare. So we're tuned in, and I'm going to continue to work very hard to support what you just said. Thank you so much. Tom?
Thank you very much, Cecil, for that question. Congressman, the next question comes from Kathleen from Windsor Heights, who has a question about repairing the budget. Kathleen, you're on with the Congressman.
Kathleen, good morning. Go ahead.
Good morning. My understanding of basic budgeting is anything when you are short revenue, one of the options for dealing with the deficit is to increase revenue. And from what I have seen, the company like GE has not paid because of tax loopholes. People like Warren Buffett says he could afford more taxes than Gates. Why do we passed and extended the Bush tax cuts. Why are we not going back and looking at restructuring our tax system to create more revenue as opposed to trying to restructure basic entitlement programs?
Kathleen, excellent points, and as you probably know from the President's comments yesterday, that going after those high multimillionaire tax exempt is going to change and come back will be our goal. Work on that. I support that. We don't need to be doing that, and you know, we'll do our best to close that down and get that back in order. And so your point's well made, and I would agree with you, and we'll do our very best to do that. So thank you very much for your call and concern, and we hope you'll stay in touch with us. Thank you. Tom?
All right. I'd like to remind anyone who has just joined us that if you have a question for Congressman Boswell, you can press *3 on your phone, and you'll be connected to a screen that will be able to connect you with Congressman Boswell. Congressman, the next question comes from Donna from Des Moines, who has a question about Social Security benefits.
Donna, go ahead with your question about Social Security.
Thank you, Congressman. I'm interested in finding out the last 2 years there have been no increase in Social Security, and the risk of having additional Social Security or additional cost to elderly citizens for Medicare, and that all comes out of their Social Security. Is there a plan to continue to not raise Social Security, or how are they going to do that?
Excellent points, Donna. You know, some of us voted to get the $250 out to make up for that difference, and of course it was voted down by the people across on the other side, so it didn't happen. But this is something that would be very, very helpful, and so we'll continue to work on that. But I just have to tell you, the Social Security is not the cause of our budget problems. That's not it. Social Security is working, and it's solvent. The money has been paid in, and it's good for a number of years yet. Now, we may need to make some tweaks to it like we've had done in the past, but the overall part of it does not need that. So we need to put to quit putting the blame on seniors about this, because that's just not where the problem is. The problem is the big tax breaks, the subsidy to the oil companies, the subsidies or the tax breaks for the second homes and the yachts and things like this. It needs to stop, and also it needs to stop that the people are taking advantage of the rest of our country by having their mailing address in places overseas, and they're not paying their fair share of the corporate taxes. And as I mentioned with GE, this is unbelievable, as profitable as they are and what they have been able to gain. And then when it's all said and done, because they've got hundreds of people working in their accounting department and their legal side of it, they've found out ways to not pay any taxes, and that's just not the way it should be. And it is refreshing to me that and I hope you know some too, that people have been very successful. They'll say, we don't need another tax break. I'd rather see you invest in education and research and conservation and alternative fuels and things like that. And that's, I find very pleasing to me that some of our very wealthy folks feel that way, as they should. They appreciate the fact that they get to live in this country, this great country of ours, and they've been very successful, and we're happy for them. But they should pay their fair share. And there's some that don't want to. Thank heavens there's some that do, and we need to make that correction. So thank you, Donna, for those great remarks, and we'll stay in touch. Tom, next question.
Okay, Congressman. The next question comes from Hannah Vance. Hannah has a question about how folks can work together.
Anna, I believe it was.
Yes, it's Hannah.
Yeah, Hannah, I'm sorry. Hannah,
yeah.
Please go ahead with your question.
Well, my basic question is, why does it have to be us and them? I know everything needs tweeted. I know, we're talking about Medicare and Social Security now. And I know that we can tweet those. I'm not saying eliminate them. I'm saying tweet them. There's a lot of fraud going on in both of these. We know of people that has got Social Security checks for 20 years that's been dead. We need to tweet all this. The same
that
way
needs to be fixed, yes.
Right. We all have to be willing to give. And being a senior citizen, and like these people have said, we've worked, we paid our Social Security. The joke with the kids is now don't quit. We can't quit our jobs because you won't get your check. But, I think we need to work maybe as and one of the problems you do, and it drives me crazy, is that you talk about what we do, and they do. And, okay, it's your turn.
Well, thank you very much, Hannah. Excellent remarks, and I want you to know that you're correct. We can do some things, and I think that's what the President referred to, that, people are living longer, so therefore the start date could be moved up a year or two, and that would make a large difference. And also, it's cutting off the deductions for Social Security at a certain point where everybody's not paying in. Seems like that could be adjusted. We've done that in the past. We can do that as well. So I agree. I think you're making excellent points, and it is something we should be working on hard together. And the two committees I'm on, I think that we work pretty good bipartisanly, but it needs to be better, and I try to encourage that, and I will continue to do that because I'm tired of it too, as I'm sure you are. And, this is our country. It's not my country or his country or her country. It's ours. It's for us. And so us, if you will, we ought to be working together. And I spend a lot of effort in trying to promote that, and I will continue to do so because I understand and feel the same way. That was excellent points. Thank you so much. Tom, next question.
Congressman, the next question comes from Charles Brooks, who's from Des Moines, and Charles has a question about Medicare costs.
Okay, Charles, go ahead with your question about Medicare.
Well, Congressman, I've been retired 3 years. I'm lucky that I have IPERS and I've got my Social Security, but they take $90, of course, for my A and B on Medicare, and I pay $150 a month to a private insurance to supplement that. and because of the diabetes, my gosh, I'm still paying $70 a month just for my insulin for the diabetes, and other drugs, it runs me almost $110 a month on top of that. So I'm not getting everything free. I'm certainly paying out every month, and I don't see how they can go after us for more.
Well, your point's well taken. Go ahead, Charles. I'm sorry.
No, that's it. I just don't understand why they always go after
well, I think
older people or the poorest people.
Yeah, well, first off, thank you for your service to our state and our country, and the fact that you've done a good job of having a savings program and a retirement program and are willing to share some of that. So we all appreciate that and share your concern. And that's one of the reasons that I'm calling you to give input, which I'll share with my people across the aisle and the people in my own caucus, that, Americans don't want to put in a position where they're going to increase the cost of Medicare. It doesn't need to happen. And if they go to this voucher system and then the costs go up to the 60% versus what you pay now, that would be too much. And that would probably break the back of people like yourself that's, getting along and doing the best you can and not really complaining about it. So don't add something else that we don't need to add. We don't need to add this. There's other places to get the savings. And I'll just keep making that point, and I'll keep making that point to my colleagues and as well as to you. We need to stop these tax breaks to the very, very wealthy. We need to stop these subsidies to the oil companies. We need to bring our troops home, and there's many places where we can save the money and keep our country going and also start reducing this deficit, which we must do. Everybody's got to share. If we share equally and we share willingly, why, we can do this and we can get the job done. So your points are well taken, and thank you for the call, and I really appreciate it. Tom.
Thank you again for the call. And a last reminder, if you have a question for Congressman Boswell, you can just call or press *3 on the phone, and you'll be connected to a screener who can assist you. Congressman, the next caller is Linda from Ankeny, who has a question about ways or a question about how to fund Social Security.
Okay, go ahead, Linda. Thanks for calling.
Hello, Congressman. This is Linda.
Yes.
What I wanted to know was, couldn't we continue taking out on the people that make more money than there's always used to be a limit on how much you earned, and then you didn't have to pay at the end of the year, perhaps? Couldn't they just, when you make that amount, couldn't they just continue to the end of the year, those that make more money, just continue taking out the Social Security and the Medicare payments?
Linda, that's an excellent thought, and I agree with you. And in fact, I am proposing that as well, because there's a lot of people with high income that by about September they're all paid up, and then they don't pay anything into Social Security until the end of the fiscal year or end of the calendar year. So that makes a big difference, and that's one of the things that could be tweaked, as we talked about, that would help a lot and would be sensible, and I don't think anybody would really object to it. So that's a great idea, and appreciate that, and we'll do that, I would think, at some point. And I believe that I haven't gotten every detail from the President's speech yesterday because it was a busy day here for me, but I would think those are some of the things that he was inferring and wants to do to preserve Social Security. I had the strong impression that he's not in favor of taking away Social Security as we know it or Medicare. And I agree. We don't need to. There are other ways for us to solve this problem. Thank you so much. Back to you, Tom.
Congressman, the next question comes from George Mann, who's from Des Moines, who has a question about spending.
Go ahead, George. What do you tell us about spending, or what's on your mind?
Well, the thing is, I keep seeing on numerous television newscasts that we don't have so much income problem as we do a spending problem. Mm. And I know that if I make $25,000 a year, which is my average salary, I can't spend $30,000.
I agree.
I'm wondering why, over the period of the last 25 or 30 years, we have got ourselves in this kind of trouble. Who is it that's spending all this money, and for what?
Okay, well, Excellent concern, George. As you probably recall, during the last term of the Clinton years, we were actually going to a surplus, paying off our debt, and within 10 years it would have been gone. But that reversed in the next administration, and then we went to the Wall Street greed debacle, that I called it at least, and it caused, almost caused us to go into depression. It did certainly put us in a tough economy with this recession we're in. It's interesting to me, a very successful Iowan, northern Iowa, Berkeley Burdell. You might remember that name. Do you remember Berkeley Burdell? Anyway, he was very successful. He was. You might pick up the Des Moines Register and go to page 9A last Monday and read that column that the former congressman wrote. Very successful businessman that started out using his money from his paper route and built it into a great company, and then what happened when they didn't work on revenues and just expenses and so on. And that's why I'm agreeing with the president that, you know, the very wealthy do not need this tax break, and in fact many of them will tell you that. And so we've got to reduce spending in these areas that we've been talking about, as far as the subsidies to oil companies and the wars. That it's time to bring our troops home. It would save us a lot of money. And take a look at everything, and all departments share in this, and we can reduce our overhead, and we don't have to take it out on the seniors and working families and put hardship on them. I don't think that's necessary. And so I'm advocating and working very hard that we take that approach versus the one that has been suggested by the majority's budget proposal that we're hearing about. And I guess we're going to see it at a vote maybe as early as tomorrow. I just can't support that approach, and I think I'm justified for it, and I think it's kind of what you're telling me too. So thank you so much for that, and maybe we'll get a chance to talk some more sometime. But thanks a lot, and back to you, Tom.
Okay, the next question comes from Jeff Stevens, who has a question about what can be done to protect folks who depend upon the programs that are being discussed. Jeff, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yes, Mr. Boswell. How are you today?
I'm good. And you?
I'm fine. Listening to your show, or your program here. I'm a caregiver for somebody who is disabled, and this fear-mongering that's going on about Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security being cut is ridiculous. You know, you've got people scared to death. You don't, but the other side of the aisle, as you call it, I'll call them Republicans because that's what they are. You know, somehow somebody needs to do something to dismiss this. These people are scared to death. They're going to lose their benefits. What is being done about that?
Well, because we're offering a solution that's different, and it's feasible, it's common sense, as my old dad would have said down the farm, makes horse sense. We got to do this in a sensible way and a practical way, and stop the fear-mongering. And it just seems like there's this effort that we're going to take this out of the hide of seniors and out of the hide of working families, and that's not necessary. And it does cause a lot of stress, and I understand that. And I'm back in the district every weekend and every work period, and I know, and that's why I decided to make this telephonic call today. You let me touch with more people, which we're trying to do by this method, to say that, you know, there is an alternative, and we can do better. And there's a lot of us that are working hard to make it better. And so I want you to make it very clear. I'm putting my foot down. I'm going to fight as all I'm worth to stop this discussion about privatizing Social Security and raising the expense on the seniors' backs on Medicare, which does not need to be done because there are other places to come up with that revenue, which I've said many times over. Those that have been listening are probably maybe getting tired of me repeating it. But we have prepared an alternative budget that you'll be hearing more about, that does reduce total spending by $4 trillion over the next many years, but it's protecting the programs that I know are very important to middle-class working families and seniors, and this is not the time to dump stress on them, and I really resent the fear-mongering that you refer to, and certainly agree with you. So we'll work hard on it, and appreciate your support and your encouragement as you go around talking to people and say, you know, they all don't feel that way, and we're going to continue to work with people in our Congress to do the sensible thing and take the right approach. Appreciate your comments very, very much. Back to you, Tom.
Okay, Congressman, the next question comes from Sharon Lamb from Des Moines. Sharon has a question for you about the ongoing budget battles.
Sharon, please go ahead.
Hi. Thanks very much for doing this. I really appreciate it. I wanted to first make a couple of comments. I agree with the lady who was on before. I would much rather see statesmanship than bipartisanship. But basically, the Republicans stated at the beginning of Obama's term that they weren't going to cooperate in any term, in anything, and their goal was to defeat him. I think that Obama has bent over backwards to accommodate them, possibly too far. I think it's time to draw a line in the sand and stand up for what we believe. I think there are, even though these are all complex economic questions, there are, some simple common sense answers somewhere, and cooperation could help find them, but we're not seeing that. And I guess bottom line is I'm wondering, because I feel that if the Republicans win this battle, it could destroy this country as we know it. I'm wondering how optimistic you feel about our ability to stop this onslaught.
Well, Sharon, I appreciate your concern. I share that. I am an optimist, I guess. I think it's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult, but I believe we can do it. And, of course, I come from the land. I'm a farmer in my background, and you have to have a lot of faith to go along with your hard work. And we'll do that. And I thought, I recall that this President Obama, as you've made mention of him, he got elected, and then by the time that he got into the White House and got the keys to the White House, I say sometimes, had the keys in one hand and a bucket full of problems in his other hand that happened before he got there. And he's had to take some real stringent measures to try to hold our country together, and I think he's worked hard, good. Not everything perfect, but he's taken it serious, and he's worked hard to do it. And we did avoid going into the all-out depression that looked like it was inevitable. And so now we got to struggle through and get our fiscal house back in order because of that. And we're showing some success, in many areas, but it's kind of fragile. And so we need to continue to work and not do things that would turn the economy down. We got to keep it on the upswing, and it's not easy, but it's doable. So I think his suggestions yesterday, how we need to everybody step up to the plate, and those that are very fortunate and worked hard but are very wealthy, they should pay their taxes, and we need to maybe tweak the Social Security and raise the age limit a little bit because people are living longer, and that's all factual. And there's a number of things we can do and that will balance things up and work it out together. So I have to believe we can do this, and I'm going to stay on that vein and work as hard as I can with the encouragement I get from folks like yourself and others back in the district to head down that path and to stay on it. And I appreciate your concern, and we share it, and we'll continue to work very, very hard. Thank you so much for calling in. Tom?
Congressman Clifford Campbell from West Des Moines has a question about the future of Medicare policy going forward. So, Clifford?
Clifford, go ahead, please.
Yeah, Congressman Boswell, excuse me. I guess my question is that if President Obama decides to run and continue and by the grace of God, he wins and stays in there for another 4 years, if not, then the next president, will he have the opportunity and or will he take what you guys are working on right now for the Medicare and throw it out the window and let the people on the other side take over and do whatever they want? Is that a possibility?
Well, anything's possible, but I don't think it's likely because I think the American people are paying attention right now, and thank heavens they are. They're tuned in that, now wait a minute, there are things going on that we shouldn't be doing and we don't have to do. There are alternatives, and those alternatives we've been talking about, but it's my hope, it's my effort that we can resolve this situation that we're in, and I see a path that we can do it. And we worked hard. We've developed an alternative budget, so we're putting something on the table. The president yesterday, he put out on the table what he'd like to do to work our way out of this and to move forward and protect Social Security and protect Medicare as we know it and not change it. And I think that's what we can do, and I think that's what we should do. And actually, I believe in the end, with the influence of people across this great country of ours, that's what will happen. So I have hope, and I want you to have hope, and also continue to share your concerns and to work hard with your friends and neighbors that, we work our way through this. And if we all share in it, we can, and we will. And so thank you again for your call, and we'll look forward to the efforts we can make together. Tom.
Okay, one last reminder, if you have a question for Congressman, you can press *3 on your phone, and you can then be taken, and we'll try to facilitate your call. Congressman, the next question, or the next constituent is Cheryl Prather, who's calling about Congressman Ryan's budget.
Cheryl, go ahead with your comment or question.
Okay. I am not quite as conciliatory as some of the rest of the callers have been. Congressman Ryan is the one that is responsible for wanting to put seniors in Medicare into private insurance companies. And I'm wondering, because I'm just mad as hell, and I wonder what I as a citizen can do about it. Thinking about bombarding them with letters and calls and tell them, don't do this, or you will pay a price.
Well, your letters and calls and that type of activity, that's part of our American way, Cheryl, so please feel free to do that, and that's what you should do, I think. But we're going to do what we can. We've offered up an alternative. I realize what you're saying. He is the budget chairman and has brought this forth, but there's a lot of alternatives, and we're going to do our best to put daylight on it so that people like you and across the country understand that this is not really the way to go. It's not necessary to take these draconian efforts to do away with Medicare as we know it. It's needed, it works, and there are ways to preserve it and keep it going. I was appreciative and kind of relieved to hear the president make his comments yesterday that he feels the same way. So that is good. So there's another way to do it, and we need to stop the tax giveaways and the corporate giveaways and things we've been talking about. And I think that in the end, with the influence of folks like yourself and others that you've heard this morning on our call-in show or our call-in telephone town hall, that the Americans feel that way. And I think as they understand the efforts that are being to change things that don't need to be changed in a bad way, I just have to believe that we get down to the end of the process that we will do the right thing. And I'm going to work very hard on it. And your concerns encourage me even more, and I will stay on the task. And again, thank you for the call. And back to you, Tom.
Congressman, the next question comes from Patricia from Altoona, who is concerned about job creation.
Patricia, please go ahead.
Yes. First of all, I'd like to thank you for your service. You've been in there many years, and we appreciate it. What I want to know is they keep saying that, we don't dare raise taxes on the corporations because if we do, they will not have the jobs for the people. Well, I want to know, where are the jobs that they're so afraid to hire people because of tax scare?
Well, Patricia, you're pretty well tuned in. This is about, the 100th day that they've been in the position they're in, and they haven't offered up anything that has to do with creating the economy and jobs, and I'm very disappointed about that. We keep bringing up thoughts to them daily and proposing things that would create jobs and to get us back on the economy, but they're kind of at this point, they're just on this one purpose, and that's to cut, and do it in places that is not the right places. Now, some places probably they are right, we all need to make some reductions in things that we don't need, things that are redundant. And when the Secretary of Defense comes forth and says he can do with less, that we ought to be listening to that. When the Secretary of Agriculture, the next largest budget, does the same thing, we ought to be listening to that. Instead, we're talking about doing these things that have a terrible impact on the working families and on seniors, and change programs that have worked out so successfully that we've just got to do our best to turn this, and I think that we will. So we'll continue to work very, very hard on it, and appreciate your encouragement that we do that, and also any help that you can give us as far as talking to your friends and neighbors and saying, together we can make some sacrifices, we can do it, but there's no reason that we need to give up Medicare as we know it. There's no reason that to give up on the Social Security, to privatize and so on. It's just not necessary. It would be a wrong thing to do. So we'll stay on it, and we appreciate your call. Thank you so much. Tom.
Congressman Teresa McNeil is from Des Moines, and she has a question about the future of Medicare, Social Security, and the implications of the Affordable Care Act.
Okay. Go ahead. Please go ahead with your call.
Hi, Congressman Boswell. Again, I'd like to thank you for your service. My concern is that what's really happening is that the Republicans have said that they're going to destroy the Affordable Health Care Act, and I think my concern is that they're trying to attack Social Security and Medicare in order to compromise them. In other words, where that's the only place that can be compromised is the Affordable Health Care Act. Do you see that happening?
Well, I see them making that kind of an effort, and it stresses me a lot, because I knew for years, not just because we went through the debate on it last year, what we did on the Affordable Care Act, it very much needed. People with pre-existing conditions, and we could just go through that whole litany of things that, was getting out of hand. And so we needed to deal with it. And what stressed me, I guess, as we got into the discussion about it, as I heard some of the stuff, if you go back in history and look it up, that they said about when we, back in the 30s when we passed Social Security, then back in the 60s when we passed Medicare. And here they're saying this same thing about the Affordable Health Care Act, and it's needed and it's doable. And if we just let it work out its way through as we put it in process over the time plan that's on, it's going to make a big difference. And in fact, that's still the respected opinion that it will actually save a lot of money. And in the process of doing that, that will help us with our deficit and other things, and people will have more affordable, accessible health care. So I decided that what's going on, as you've just mentioned, this currently is this continual barrage against Medicare, that this is not necessary. And I have enough confidence that if people like yourself and your neighbors and the people in the community are talking about it and thinking about it and giving it some attention and calling your representatives and so on, as you've heard some of our callers say they're going to pick up the pace on, it's a good thing, because we know better. We don't have to do this, and it's so clear that there are other ways to reduce the expense that's reasonable and reduce the deficit and still maintain these things that are so important to our families and so important to seniors. And so we're going to continue to work on that very hard, and I really appreciate you calling in. Thank you so much. Back to you, Tom. Probably we're getting about to where we're going to have to take maybe one or two more questions.
Okay. Don Shriver is from Johnston and has a question about job creation.
Good morning, Representative Buck.
Good morning, Don. Go ahead.
I know you in the past you've had some health issues. It's really good to hear you strong and firm. It's very encouraging. Thank you.
Well, I've never been more motivated in my life, Don, because this is important to you and me and our families and our kids and our grandkids, and so we'll stay motivated. But go ahead with your question.
Well, to me, this whole budget thing is a red herring. We need jobs. The job creation should be number one. The budget can be dealt with in many ways over time. they're bringing it up now because they can attack the middle class. The other side, in my opinion, the Republicans are simply attacking the middle class. Medicare has an administrative cost of about 3%. The typical in medical insurance, it's 15 all the way up to 30%. A very common and growing position in any hospital or clinic is billing clerk. And part of the problem is they are trying to document stuff so the insurers will pay. If we're going to change Medicare, can we do it in such a way that it rewards best practices or the best protocols? It rewards the outcome instead of 89 tests.
Don, let me just dialogue with you a bit. That's an excellent thought, and the Affordable Care Act, because of the discrepancies and disparities that were going on between the states, and Iowa was at the kind of the bottom of the totem pole, we've got that process involved, and to give reward for the efficiency and the good care and things of that nature, and we can see that talking to Secretary Sebelius and others, that they can start seeing results of it, and so we've just got to stay the course on the Affordable Care Act, and it does make a difference. And your comment about the jobs emphasis, you've heard me probably speak about it a few moments ago, but we haven't seen anything offered that would help the economy coming out. All the concentration has been on this cut, but reducing or cutting in the wrong places. And we ought to be putting a lot of emphasis of our energy here on how we can increase the economy and create jobs and get people to work. And one of the things that I've proposed, I just re-dropped, as they say, re-enrolled the bill last evening, working with one of my colleagues in Nebraska, and that is the pipeline that come across the country, starting out in the Midwest here, and it's like starting basically in Nebraska and coming across Iowa and all the way to the East Coast to bring the biofuels here to make it available. We have trouble transporting with trucks and rail availability, and so there needs to be a dedicated pipeline, which would be a great thing. That's probably maybe 80,000 jobs in our state alone just doing that, and that's a good thing. Plus, helping market something that we know how to produce very well, and we're going to get better at it. And as an example, there's other examples of things we could do, but your point's well made. It seems like it's trying to just press down on the middle Americans, and as far as I'm concerned, that's the backbone of our country. I often refer to my old military days. I was an enlisted man for a while, then I was an officer. And, the officer's given the challenge, we got to go take this objective. He's got to have his troops with him, or he won't make it. Well, it's the same thing with our country and the economy. We got to have the working people, educated and ready to go, and being able to have a reliable source of income so they can take care of their families and their children to get educated and so on. And so we need to put our emphasis back on that. And I think that in the end, the leadership that we heard out of the President's speech yesterday and efforts of people like you and me, that we'll get there. We just got to keep the faith and keep working hard, because it's not going to be easy, but we'll work hard. We'll get there. So I appreciate your call very, very much, and thank you for checking in. Tom, can we take one more, and then that'll be probably it.
Okay, Congressman, the last call comes from James Kirch, who would like to know about any agreements on spending.
The call's from James. Well, James, go ahead with your question, and we'll respond.
Okay. It seems to me that the opposite side of this whole thing, you have a lot of people who don't know what the word compromise is. Mm-hmm. And I would venture to say that most of us, somewhere between the president's idea and the opposition's idea, there's got to be a middle ground somewhere. And the problem is trying to find it.
Well, I certainly
they
agree
don't
with you.
Well,
you're right, and that's what this country's always been about. And we've got to come to a final budget agreement that will encourage the country to move forward and so on. And we've got to set priorities, and so that's what we have to do in the government. We got the pros and the cons. We have the debate and discussion, and then we have to compromise. And when they went through this government shutdown process recently, why it ended up with a compromise, and we all figured that would probably have to happen and should happen. So it did. And so we're at the situation we're at now. So your point is well taken, and it's a very, very good point. And I just want you to know that some of the things that we need to do, and we're kind of repeating a little bit, but prioritizing is critical in the budgeting process. And it's my vote, or my efforts will always be to preserve our Medicare benefits for seniors instead of extending tax cuts for millionaires. They seems like that's a reasonable compromise and a solution. Ending Medicare as we know it by privatizing seniors' health care and doubling their premiums is just cost shifting, and it's a wrong solution. And but are there other solutions? Yes, there are, and that's what we ought to be working on. And we, of course, need a multi-pronged attack that cuts domestic spending but phases out the conflict in Iraq and Afghanistan and ends some of the tax subsidies we've been mentioning that cost Americans billions of dollars per year, and it's just not justified. So my hope and my priority will continue to be to bring our budget back into balance with programs and strategy which protect our citizens and strengthen our country and grow our economy. And with that, I'm getting the signals and my time is running out, so I would just like to say this, if I could, that I really appreciate everybody that's called in, the attention you've given. I want to thank you so much for participating this morning. I feel like it's been worthwhile, and I feel encouraged and I feel strengthened by the fact that the people at home have responded and with ideas and sharing their concerns. And I want you to know that your thoughts are important, and I appreciate you sharing them ahead of today's vote on Medicare changes. I go feeling very firm and very strong that I'm on the right path, and I'm going to stay there. I'm going to fight to preserve Medicare as we know it and not change it. I want you to know I've enjoyed the calls this morning. It's been a quick hour. It happened. I feel like we've been on the phone for 10 minutes. So that's a good sign. So if you happen to have additional questions, and many of you may well have, stay on the line, and you'll receive and leave a voicemail message for my staff and for me, and then we'll respond to it. Thank you so very, very much, and have a great day, and I look forward to seeing everybody back in Iowa. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.